Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to today's conversation. Yeah, there are only two of us. We're not sure what's happened to my co-host Enolia, but that is as it is, and hopefully she will join us. That's technology for you folks. As sort of our guest, Lela was just saying, she's spoken to her earlier today. So, hopefully we've got her. And as I said, our guest, and I'm going to say our guest with the hope Enolia joins us. Lela, I didn't say to you, is it Greenough? How do you say
Greenough?
Greenough. Okay.
Yes.
So I apologize. Greenough.
Okay.
Lela Greenough has joined us today for us to share a conversation on healing the body while healing from abuse. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. Lela, just share a little of your story about yourself and why this particular topic is so important to you. Because obviously we ask our guests to choose the topic.
I'm a healer, so I do energy work for people. I help individuals by wellness analysis application without furthering further disease through conscious awareness. But I too was trapped in this circle of domestic violence, um, and it's one of these things that you can get out of. We're led to believe that we can't and that we have to stay in it, but that's not true. So it's my hope that women or men, because it happens to men too, when they view this video, that they find ways to help themselves to get away and heal their own selves and their own lives through that, because it is a scary thing.
Oh, it absolutely is a scary thing. And it's for many people, I believe, that go through this in adulthood, it's from what they've witnessed and experienced as a child that supports that this is how life is.
Yes.
When it doesn't have to be how life is.
It's not normal. When someone loves you and cares about you, they don't treat you that way. It's like growing up and the little boy on the playground comes up and punches you in the arm or something, or kicks you or pulls your hair, and somebody says, "Oh, he really likes you." Yeah, that's not what you do when you like someone. It's the little boy on the playground that brings you flowers, wildflowers that he went out and he picked. That's what that that little boy likes you. That's what that means. So we have this belief system that's been put in place by people that it's not so. That's not how people get treated that are loved and cared for. And it hurts a lot of people. It even, and it filters down through families, through generations. It's a generational thing. My mother lived that way. Her mother lived that way. It was in my father's family, so it was on both sides. So to me, it was normal.
Yeah.
That's how, that's what a marriage was. That's what it was like to have a family. You fought with your spouse and your kids were afraid, and you don't ever talk about it outside of the house. You don't tell anybody. You don't take it to school. It's a big secret, that gets swept underneath of the rug because they don't want people to know what's going on. So there are places to go for help, and they're wonderful places. I went to the Rape Abuse Crisis Center when I moved up out of the area that I lived in. I live in the country, and that really helped me. It really helped me to know the red flags and the cycle that the violence happens. And once I, took these classes, I was like, oh my God, that was my whole life, my whole life. And I'm like, how could I have stayed in something that was not only hurting me, but also hurting my kids? I didn't know.
And
So
yeah,
now
and
I know.
the sad part is, isn't it? Because so many people, it's I've got to keep the security for my children. But unfortunately, actually, the security wasn't very secure, um, and was really destructive, and could help put them in exactly the same position that you're trying to protect them from.
Yes. Well, you hear things, it's like the Stockholm syndrome. I was told, you're ugly, you're fat, you're used baggage, nobody's ever going to want you. If you try and leave, I'm going to kill you. This is some strong stuff, uh, really strong stuff. And I did it for a very long, I did it for 10 years. He was even like that when I dated him. And, you know, in my mind, when we get married, things will be different. It'll change and he won't act like this. And it only gets worse. It doesn't get any better. I learned that I can't fix someone else. They have a part in them that's broken that they need to look at and fix themselves. Because I didn't do it to them, it was already done to them before they came into my life. Just like it was already done to me before I came into somebody else's life. It's a terrible cycle to be trapped in, and now you have to figure out and fix all the broken pieces and learn how to trust people, because it smashes your trust. It's like, what is this person going to do? How is this person going to treat me? But when you learn about these cycles, you see the red flags, and that tells you everything you need to know, that this person has broken parts. And if they're not working on it, there isn't anything that anybody else can do for them other than them. So, I have had friends and family members that are or were trapped in that kind of a situation, but it is up to them to take the first step and then keep on going forward, because I can't fix it. I could help you, I could talk to you, I could direct you where to go, but in the end, it is the other person's work. And it's hard work, because most people that are being abused live in a fight or flight mode their whole entire life, and it is exhausting. Single moms, they live in, uh it's not fight or flight, but it's, you got to get up, you got to go to work. It doesn't matter if you're sick, you got to go to work, you have kids, so you're constantly on the go to try and make sure that everyone's needs are met, and you become exhausted. It's hard.
Yeah.
So I try and help as many people as I can navigate that, because people are afraid to go. Like you said, there's a financial security there. If you don't own, make your own money, and you don't have a career or whatever, it, it, it's you look at it as it's virtually impossible for me to go out on my own. I never finished high school. I took my GED and I went to a 2-year technical school. I had this dream that I was in, one of those old homemade coffins, and he was standing above my coffin, smiling and snickering. And then he put the lid on and he's still smiling and he's nailing in the nails. You know, he had won. He had my kids. That is the dream that woke me up that said, you need to figure out how to get away and be able to take care of three little girls. Because if you don't, they're going to have the same life that you've got. And that was a powerful dream. And like I said, after that, I took my GED and I went to a 2-year technical school. And then my mom called me. Someone had called her and told her what was going on. And she told me, she says, you have a choice. You can either come home on your own or I can come and get you. And I was like, I have to call you back. So I called her back and I told her, I said, I'll come on my own. I said, because if you come here, I'm afraid that something bad will happen to you. I'm afraid that he will do something to you. So I got enlisted a couple of my friends. They helped me pack. Um, I had contacted the school and I told them that I was transferring my kids, that they weren't to be told about any of this, nor was anybody else to be notified. And that I would let them know when I was coming to the school to get them from school. And I had dropped him off at work, and my friends met me at my house, and I packed what I could. I went to the school. I got my kids out of school. I stopped to see a family member, and I'm like, I gotta go. I couldn't even hold a cup of tea. That's how bad that's the shaking. I was terrified.
Yeah.
And the whole way up the turnpike, I'm looking in the rearview mirror thinking, he knows he's going to come after me. And I lived like that for probably the first 7 or 8 months. But then, he says, I'll go to AA and I'll quit drinking and all of this other stuff. And he did, but he was still the same person. He was still the same person that didn't do this right or I didn't do that right. And, some other things that had happened. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. You need to pack your things and go back to where you came from. And that's the end of that. Because I knew then, and it only took me 10 days. And I knew no, this is not good. But I gave it my best shot, and I've now I look back on that and it's like he is a very broken person and there isn't anything that you can do to fix that. They have to fix that. And he doesn't choose to do that because he doesn't see an issue with his behavior. That in itself is a problem. So,
Yeah. And that's just it, isn't it? It is a learned behavior. It's what's been witnessed, and they think, but that's normal. That's how it
mhm,
should be. And
right.
for each of us, it's whether you're on the receiving end of it or you're actually dishing it out. For each of us, it's how is this making me feel? And do we
Yeah.
ever go into our feelings? Or are we in such a place that it's, I daren't feel? But it's important to go into the feelings of,
Yeah.
is this really right? Is this how it should be? Is, with somebody who is, for want of a better word, the perpetrator, if they allowed themselves to think and not to think, to feel, does what I am doing feel good? Does it feel right? Does it feel like this is me? Because I think there are times that when we think, okay, fine, I'm looking at a picture of what used to happen in my family, and I'm not sort of saying anything about my family. Things happened to me as a child, which could absolutely, but by the system, be called abuse. Not by my parents, but it was definitely by the system. How does something that you're viewing that you're a part of make you feel? Does it feel true to who you are? And if it doesn't, then what is going to help you to feel that it's true to who you are? And there are people that find themselves in those situations of being the abuser because that is what they've witnessed. That is what they believe is their role in life. And that is why they don't see anything wrong with it. But were they, as a child, somebody who witnessed it and looked at their mother or their father, depending on who was being abused, and this could be male or female, and could they be thinking, I am so worried about my mother, I'm so worried about my father, this, and they understand at that point that that isn't how it should be. So where has that gone within them? But there are some people, they don't even have to witness it, and that is how they become. It's each individual. We are all different, we are all unique. But if you are on the receiving end of something, how is it making you feel? And if it isn't making you feel loved and cared for and cherished, then that is not a relationship of loving and caring.
No, no, it is not. Mm-mm.
And it's time to sort out how. Is there family you can go to? Is there a friend you can go to? Or have you got to find an organization? And if you have to, you go to the police. You have to do whatever it takes to support you, your
Yes,
safety, and if you have children, their safety. And
yes.
I
It's
absolutely understand it's not easy. It
no.
really
Well,
isn't easy.
when you fly on an airplane, they tell you if something happens and the oxygen mask comes down, put yours on first so that you can help other people.
Yeah.
Same thing. You can't help your children if you continue to stay in the same situation and environment that you're in. When I do healing work with people, I tell them, you cannot heal in the same environment that you got sick in. You have to remove yourself from the environment and from the situation and get your body calmed down in order to go within to figure out, what do I need to do for me to get myself where I need to be, where I can function and not only take care of me, but take care of my kids. We forget that. We forget that we are important because without us, there is no others. We are the life givers. We birth life. So if, you know, without us, that ends.
And it's
So,
remembering you can't pour from an empty pot.
no.
You really can't pour from an empty pot. And so if you have
Mm-mm.
just drained absolutely everything out of you, you cannot be there for you can't be there for yourself. You certainly
No.
can't be there for anybody else. And neither of us are saying this is easy.
No.
Although the
It's
situation,
messy.
carry on.
It's messy and it's hard and it's gut wrenching. And I mean, there's people that you're going to have to leave behind. When I had to leave very good friends behind that I went to school with my whole life, you know, other family members. I had to leave all that behind when I left. I mean, I left and went with my parents, but there were other family members and friends that I had to leave behind. But I had to do that in order to save myself and save my kids.
Yeah,
So it's hard, and there's once you start working with that and healing from that, it's in layers and layers and layers and layers. And it is hard, but it's the most beneficial work that
yeah,
you'll ever do,
yeah,
because that's where the healing comes in. When you're on the floor crying and screaming because you've stayed in this and you thought one thing, but it was actually something else, and you're kicking yourself in the butt over it, and you're screaming and you're crying and you're beating yourself up. When the dust settles, you'll end up hugging yourself because you loved yourself more than you loved that other person that was abusing you, and you did something about it.
it's being aware that the most important person to love you is you. And
Yes.
you are the only one that can set the boundaries of what is acceptable to you and what isn't acceptable to you. It is not for other people to set those boundaries. It really isn't. I, um, you know, I know my situation was very, very different, but I was definitely somewhere I shouldn't be. And it took me years and years to get out. And things just got so bad on an emotional level rather than, and I don't think he even realized that he was doing it. Again, it was a learned behavior from watching his own parents. And when I had the courage to say, it's over, but I wasn't going to get beaten up, I was actually able to have that face-to-face conversation. But if you are in a relationship, and there's a lovely saying, if respect is no longer being served at the table, it is time to leave the table, which was actually very relevant, having heard that years and years later, because it was situations at the dining room table. It was just like, I'd speak to him and I was getting ignored. He would rather watch a soap opera than speak to me. And it was just like, and it was, oh, did you say something? And I was like, why do I bother? You obviously don't want me here. I'm useful only to cook your meals and do your washing. I'm a slave in my own home. And so when I actually turned around and said, marriage is over, it was, but I love you. And you've got everything I ever wanted in this world, and that includes you. Well, you could have fooled me, because that is not how you've made me feel. And I had been so insecure. I had been stuck in that for far too long. But suddenly, and yes, it took a wake-up call, and I don't need to go into that, but it took a wake-up call. Like your dream, it took a wake-up call. And I had the courage to turn around, and I had no idea where I'd sleep that night. But it got to the stage where I just had to do something about it. I didn't have children, but I still had to find the courage to do it. And it all worked. It just happened to all work and fall into place for me. I was very lucky. It was almost as if by taking the confidence to be true to me, that the universe helped everything. I had to help myself. It wasn't just given to me, but the universe helped so much to fall in place because I took the action. And I would say, have the courage of the amazing person that you are, and know that you are worthy of so much more. And it doesn't matter what the other individual says. Because if I'd gone beyond the point of it being retrievable, and it is, you will find that you are at that point, that it is not retrievable. You attempted to give it a go because he said he had done something to support change. But you are, for me, I don't believe that it could have changed enough for me to feel I was anything other than a slave in my own home. So I think it's a matter of saying it doesn't matter whether it's physical, emotional, whatever it is. If you are feeling unloved, unwanted, not good enough, then that isn't the place you should be. Because each and every one of us is more worthy than that. We are worth all the love that we give to others.
Absolutely. You know, and I tell people abuse comes in more than one way. It's mental, physical, and verbal. You know, you don't have to leave a bruise on somebody to hurt them and cut them.
Yeah.
So I felt like a prisoner in my own home. I lived in terror most of the time. You know, when was the next time I was going to get beat up, and are my kids going to be all right? You know, and then you have people say, well, why don't you just leave? You know, it's not that easy. You know, you can't just pack up and walk out the door. That doesn't happen unless, you know, they're incarcerated or working and nobody's calling them and telling them anything. And, you know, I escaped pretty easily, but it took me a long time to do it because I was terrified. How am I going to take care of my kids? You know, you think of all kinds of reasons and what's going on, and because they have to eat. You know, so if you don't have a family member or a friend that can help you out or a place that you can go, it makes it hard because now you have to rely on your own wits and you have to find ways to squirrel money away and make a plan. And, you know, it's nothing like walking on eggshells in your own house.
Mm.
You know, don't disrupt anything, you know, and it's hard and it's draining. So I'm glad that I got out of that and learned a lot through different classes that I took that were through, you know, their programs. So the best thing that I can tell anyone that if they're being abused is to try and contact one of these offices for help because there's all kinds of programs for uh, men and women of domestic violence, and a lot of it depends on where you live too. But um, I would, if you're trapped in that situation, I would start looking for a way out because there is a way out.
Yes.
Don't ever give
Yeah.
up and don't ever think that you're stuck in that situation and deserve it or you're less than the next person. You're not worthy enough. I don't care what excuse your brain is telling you that you can't get out of this. It's a lie. You can.
Yeah. Listen to your heart. Listen to your body. Because if your heart is hurting, if your body is hurting, it doesn't matter what your head is saying.
Right.
It really is. And for me, I do feel that having taken the courage to do what I did, it was oh, why didn't I do this years ago? But it gave me that sense of freedom.
Yes.
It helped me to take my life back, to start being true to me. But then I had been so insecure. But if you are unfortunately allowing these things to happen to you, and I don't like using that word, but it's unfortunately the truth. When you are allowing these things to happen to you, you're not being true to you. You haven't got
Right.
the love for yourself. Because it is so true. If respect isn't being served, then it is time to leave. As sad as that might be, that you may have had a beautiful beginning and you may be waiting for that beginning, that precious start to the relationship to reappear. Where is that beautiful person that you fell in love with? Because for some people, the change doesn't occur till the wedding ring is on the finger.
Yes.
Prior to that, because it's what they've witnessed within a marriage, not just within a relationship. And having sort of witnessed a male friend at work who was being abused, but he was also self-abusing because of the home life that he had. And because we were all actually getting made redundant, which was great, and believe me, I meant great, sort of, he was able to escape. And it was only, I think, last year or maybe the year before, and considering that was 20 odd years ago, that I discovered she'd found him. And I was so, so sad to hear that. I really hoped that he had escaped her, because I saw how he was in work. And when he'd said to me, he said, "Oh, do you want my email address?" I said no, because I said, if she does try finding me and finds me, I want to be able to genuinely say, I have no idea where you are. And I don't know how she found him. I didn't ask that question. But he's out of the relationship now. But it took him years. And that is, for me, that is just so sad. So men, women, whoever is on the receiving end. But if the individual who is the perpetrator cannot see that they are doing anything wrong, you can't help them other than report them. Because if you let them get away with it, they will keep doing it. If not to you, to somebody else.
Yep.
And
yes, the cycle never stops. It just keeps
yeah,
going, going, and going until you break that cycle.
yeah,
It's, and some people, there's women that provoke that
yeah,
kind of behavior because they feel that they deserve it because they've done something so very wrong in their lives. There isn't anything that anybody can do that bad in their lives that deserve to be treated like that.
no, no.
You know?
And as strange as it might sound, it is tough love to report them.
Yes.
It is tough love. It isn't that you hate them. It isn't that there's none of the negative stuff. You have to realize that it is tough love. When you allow yourself to give that tough love, to turn around and say, no more, I will not accept this, and to go and report it and stick to it, maybe then they will start to realize that it really isn't the way they should behave, that it is not okay. By not reporting them, you are almost telling them it's okay to be the way they are.
Yeah, because you're accepting the behavior.
Yes.
It's
And
okay to beat me and kick me, and I've had cigarettes put out on the back of my neck, you know, and I stayed. I stayed because I couldn't support myself. I didn't even have a driver's license, you know. So people stay for all kinds of crazy reasons.
yeah.
And, they feel bad and they love the person and they care about them and they want to help them. They're not. They're not helping anyone, especially not themselves or their children, because it's further making that cycle of violence to continue through family after generation after generation after generation. It takes a strong person to break that cycle.
And you have that strength. It is
Yes.
there inside of you.
Yes.
You trust and believe in yourself. And unfortunately, the people who do these things, they control you by creating the fear, by creating that belittling of you, making you feel less than you are. They don't care as much as you do, because if they really cared, they, and yes, I absolutely appreciate you turn around and say, don't hit me, don't do that to me. You're likely, with so many of them, you're likely to get hit even worse. But it's having that support to be able to say to them, that is not how you treat people.
Right. It's unacceptable behavior. I mean, you just don't go around doing that to people.
Yeah, you really don't. And by taking yourself out of that place, the situation, that is when not only the body can heal, but then you can start getting the help, the support to heal from the emotional trauma that it has caused.
Yes. Because
And
there's a lot of emotional trauma that comes with that. And
yes,
that takes a long time to sort through that, especially if it's something that you've been dealing with for a lot of years.
yeah,
And a lot of people say, "Oh, well, it was all my fault. I did this wrong or I did that wrong." Yeah, no, it doesn't have anything to do with what you did that was right or wrong. It has to do with the other person not being able to not do that to someone else because that's all they know. So
and
it's
and
hard.
you're doing something right or wrong was their perception of it, not your
Right.
perception of it.
Right. Yes. But see, when you're in that kind of a uh, in a relationship with someone, you don't get to have your own thoughts.
No,
They
they
make sure that they think for you.
they don't want you having those sort of thoughts.
No, no, they
Yeah, and
don't.
I
You
think
don't get to have an opinion. I'm the boss and you do what I say, not as I do. Oh yeah, I've heard everything, every excuse, and oh well, I love you and I'll never do that again. Probably not until the next time that you've had too much to drink and didn't get your own way. I Yeah, I don't take excuses anymore. I look at your behavior. That tells me everything I need to know.
And the sadness is so much of it is down to drink and alcohol, isn't it? For
Yes,
so,
because normally people don't do that with a sober mind.
yeah,
They don't get that angry. Well, alcohol's a depressant, so now you're depressed and angry. It's a pretty dangerous combination. So, it's, and I've watched the level of violence between beer and uh, alcohol, like strong alcohol, whiskeys, and things like that. And it can go from 0 to 100 on somebody drinking whiskey or whatever versus having a few beers. It's just amazed me at the lightning speed that something like that could happen. So yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff.
yeah. And it's realizing that you can change your life,
Yes,
but only you can do it.
that's
Yes,
right.
it's with support.
Yes,
And if there is anybody listening to this who is the perpetrator, who is the individual that is dishing out the abuse, what has happened in your life? What abuse have you received in your
yeah,
life? What has hurt you and affected you so badly that you've got to this stage that you're just lashing out? There is help for you as well,
yes,
especially if you feel that it is hurting you, that you don't wish to be that way. You haven't got to be. You really haven't got to be like that. You also have a choice.
yes,
And I hope that you will realize, whether it's from listening to this, listening to somebody else, hearing it more than once, more than twice, more than a dozen times, that eventually you will realize that there is a beautiful soul inside of each and every one of us. There is nobody that doesn't have a beautiful soul inside them. It is your choice to stay living your life the way you are living it, or to choose to grow from it and move away from the old and find an amazing, beautiful new life that can genuinely make you happy. And that goes for everybody on every side.
yes, yes. The opportunity is there for everybody. You just have to choose to take it.
Yeah, yes. And there are
Do you want
those
to change,
there.
or do you want to stay the same? It's your choice.
Yeah,
Do you want better for yourself, or do you want the same thing that you've always gotten? It's up to you. You get to make that choice. So, like I told you, I chose me. I had to save me, and I had to love me more than I loved the other person. So I chose me and took my children and made a better life. So it can be done. And I did have to have help. I had help from family. I had help from different agencies and things like that until I could get myself together and make it so that I could get up and go to work without having to look over my shoulder every 3 minutes. It's work. So, but it's work that is able to be done if you so choose to do it.
And you will be so grateful to yourself that you did,
Yes.
that you didn't spend any longer existing rather than living. Because I
Right.
think that is what we have to realize is that isn't living, that
No.
is
You're
existing.
you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
We live in survival mode. It's exhausting. It's the same
Yeah.
as the fight or flight mode. It's exhausting. And that it sets you up for all kinds of different illnesses and dis-ease in your body and all kinds of stuff. Because you're always ramped up, you're always ready to jump or run, or you're listening all the time to who's coming and what's the tone of voice and what's the mood, and it's exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I work with people shamanically, I tell them, you have to think about the gazelle out in Africa eating, and it's just leisurely eating, it's not bothering anybody, it's having a great time. And then a lion comes because the lion's hungry. It wants to eat the gazelle. So the gazelle senses the lion's there. So the gazelle takes off running. And it runs and runs and runs and runs. A gazelle can outrun a lion. And this gazelle runs and runs and runs until the lion gets tired. And then when the lion is no longer a threat, the gazelle stops and starts eating and enjoying its dinner and not worrying about anything. Because animals, that fight or flight mode comes on, goes off, comes on, goes off. With humans, it comes on, it stays on. So mine was turned on probably in vitro and has never been turned off until I started doing energy work and shamanic work. So my whole life was exhausting because I ran in survival mode or fight or flight mode. Uh, and it just created all kinds of issues for me until I stopped and I figured out. I had to ask myself, what is it that I need to do? I was very sick at one time, and I went in the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I was like, God, what is wrong with me? And all I could hear was, if you don't figure it out, you're going to die. And I'm like, well, that's a heck of a message to hear, you know? And I had to figure out all these things that were going wrong in my body and start changing them. And as soon as I got into that stillness part and I started looking within and, started asking my own self questions, I'm like, oh my God, I've been trashing my body for years with all this other stuff, and I didn't take care of all these other things. And that led to all this other stuff and all these other things. And it was kind of overwhelming in the beginning. But when I started taking it apart a little bit at a time, little pieces here and little pieces there, it was so manageable and so easy to go deal with. I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? So again, it can be managed, and you can heal and come back from a lot of this. But it takes that first step to pick you first. And then you decide, how do I want the rest of my life to look? What is that going to look like in 5 years from now? Only you know what that is.
Yeah.
So, and if this, like you said, if this helps just one person, I have done what I needed to do. Just one. I'm not asking for a lot, because that breaks the cycle for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
because that one person may have 3 daughters or 5 daughters who will also have daughters, who will also have daughters. And they will also have sons. And those daughters will teach their sons how to treat their girlfriends and their wives. When you date someone, how do they treat their mother? That is how they will treat you.
Yeah. And watch how the father treats the mother as well,
Yeah,
because that is where
absolutely.
the learned behaviors come from. And if
Hmm.
you're a gentleman, that watch how the mother treats the father,
Yes.
because
And
that
the
is
second
what
thing
you're.
is just sit back and serve. You don't have to ask any questions. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is observe and listen. And you'll be amazed at what you learn from all of that. But you have to be honest with yourself.
Yes,
That's the other part. You have to be honest with the information that you're receiving
yes,
and
yeah.
not say, oh, well, that was probably just a little, they were having an off day. Were they? You don't know.
And if
So
this way, if they're going to be your in-laws, then you're going to be hopefully seeing a fair amount of them. So you are going to be able to get to witness.
that's
And
right.
that is what you are potentially letting yourself in for. Absolutely. Lela, we're coming to the end. I'm sorry Enolia didn't join us, but I think there's been
Oh,
an awful lot of really valuable information shared. Is there anything that we may not have touched on that you would like to share before we close?
only that I do healing work, and if you'd like a session, you can visit my website. It is called Virtual Healing with Lela. So you can schedule an appointment if you'd like.
And I will make sure that that under the website, under the video up on YouTube, and it's already up on the Gift of Healing TV website under the today's conversation pages. You can find that information. So please, if there's anything here, if you wish to speak to myself, to Lela, to Enolia, I know she hasn't been with us, but I know she's been through stuff in her life. Find people to
Down.
speak to. It's
Yes,
really important. It's
it is.
really important. So thank you so very much. In a
Thank you.
fortnight's time, Living and Leading Sourced in the New Earth with Gail Nowak. So hopefully we'll all be, otherwise it'll be myself and Gail. But hopefully Enolia will join us. I'm assuming it's just a technical issue that has prevented her from joining us today.
I'm sure.
Thank you so much. It's been
Thank
a
you.
real pleasure, and I will be in touch with you shortly. Take
All
care.
right, Mike. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.